想象一下吧，大概2代人的时间内，你们城市里的大部分人就会被完全换掉。你身边走来走去的人讲的话你根本听不懂，他们穿的衣服你也不认识，搞不好你还会听到路边有清真寺的祷告声传出来，然后你就变成自己城市跟国家里的少数民族和外来者了。其实这种人口片动在伦敦、纽约、巴黎为也，那这些西方大城市早就发生了哦。回到1975年，伦敦的白人英国人大概占了 85%， 可是50年后的现在，这个数字已经掉到只剩下 37% 了，而且还一直在往下掉。再看看美国，今年秋天入学的幼稚园小朋友们，白人小孩只占了 45% 到 46% 左右。从2014年白人新生儿的数量掉到总出生量一半以下之后，这个比例就一直没再升回去过。冰岛、奥地利、比利时、德国的情况也都差不多。有些数据显示，移民在一些西方国家里占的比例高得吓死人。到了2024年为止，有些西方已开发国家的移民人口已经超过了总人口的 20% 咯。你再想想看，如果这种情况再持续35年，很多国家会有1半以上的人口都是移民，而且主要都还是来自非洲跟中东的移民。这些西方国家在和平时期经历的人口结构大改变，剧烈程度居然跟那些因为打仗人口快速减少的地方差不多，这在历史上是很少见的。明明是和平的年代，也没有办过什么全民公投，更没有什么明确的国家计划，一个老旧城市的主要人口组成却在短短2代人的时间内彻底翻转了，这到底是为什么呢？我们拿美国来说说看吧。在1990年的时候，明尼亚波利斯市的白人比例高达 91%。 这个地方的社会福利制度是由一群关系很紧密、以北欧裔为主的群体建立的。以前比美国其他地方都还要好很多，结果现在居然有大约 20% 的人口是索马利裔。他们的国会代表是索马利裔的奥马尔，他很讨厌美国，而且还为自己的索马利身份感到骄傲。州的总检察长则是信奉伊斯兰教民族主义，他们差一点就选出索马利裔的市长了。他没选上，只是因为索马利选民自己内部有部落纷争，结果选上的白人市长也主动去迎合索马利选民，不只支持索马利移民，还用索马利语来举办活动，就连明尼苏达州的新州旗都设计得跟索马利国旗很像。
My biggest fear in life is that this man may never witness our full takeover. Yes, he may never witness that. He already witnessed our partial takeover, our little success in America. And he is the reason actually I know that the community in America is thriving. He is how I know. It's like, he's how we measure our progress. If he doesn't tweet, somebody messed up. I know it. Somebody fucked up the plan. If he tweet, I know. I know. We're doing the right things. Yes. That's how I know. So, he's old and sick, I know. He may not witness our full takeover, but I promise you that his sons will witness. Just like him, we came to exist in this country. See? The land of free men. The land of opportunities. And we're here. Yes. And we're not leaving, actually. We're not going back. What do you mean go back? You should go back first. You see, if you came fast, you go fast. See? Just like you. Tell me how you own this land. Explain to the world how this land became your land. Tell the world.
现在呢，明尼亚波利斯的犯罪率暴增，城市里一大片地区都变成又破又危险的禁区了。跟2020年以前比起来，当地的警察人力少了几百个，女生被绑架强奸已经变成很常见的事了。那些有能力的人都赶快搬走了。再来看看英国的格拉斯哥，这个被叫做英国庇护之都的城市，差不多有1/3的学生母语都不是英文。政府资料显示，有 30% 的学生被归类成把英文当作第二语言学习的人。这个城市收容的难民人数在全英国是排第1的。难民会选择来格拉斯哥，是因为苏格兰有规定，他们要求地方政府要帮所有不是自愿流浪街头的人提供住的地方，就连单身男性也在内哦，不像英格兰那样只会优先安置那些最需要帮助的人。说穿了就是只要你想来，不管你是从哪里来的，他们都会收留你。很多苏格兰当地老百姓都觉得很恐慌，很多人都在自家门口挂起了苏格兰国旗。结果呢，苏格兰的白左政府居然批评说挂苏格兰国旗是极右派的极端行为，这些白左不顾后果地接纳移民，这种政策简直太离谱了，根本就像是在自己的国家里塞满炸弹一样。中东和非洲移民习惯性的犯罪，再加上白左那种宽松的司法制度， 根本就是在挡车，对自己的国家和民族一点好处都没有。在整个英国，很多非法移民在晚上出来闲逛后强奸女性的事件多到数不清，其实就是白左工党的英国内政部在英国各地大量租用饭店来安置那些所谓的寻求庇护者，说白了就是把一堆炸弹放在老百姓家旁边一样。然后这些黑人跟女绿们指穆斯林就开始作乱，而且还不会被惩罚，反而那些反抗他们的当地人还会被抓去关。之前英国有个法官就以监狱人太多为理由释放了一个33岁的移民，他之前因为强奸14岁以下女孩被判刑，现在呢却又因为有个英国男生在社群媒体上发文反对移民政策，就判了他20个月的刑期。在英国还有个例子，有个巴基斯坦的毒贩，因为他以前是学校的模范生，所以就不用被遣送回国。移民法庭还判决说，这个叫穆罕默德·伊兹汗的人，虽然因为卖毒品被抓去关，还是可以继续留在英国，因为如果把他遣送回巴基斯坦，会影响到他的心理健康。法庭觉得他会去贩毒，是因为他没办法好好控制自己的过动症，就是 ADHD。在美国这边有个叫做卡利勒·伊布拉辛的索马利移民，在明尼苏达绑架还强奸了一个12岁的女孩，当地的伊斯兰中心竟然还写了一封社区支持信来帮他讲话，说他还没有好好融入非索马利文化。还有另一个索马利男人叫穆罕默德，他拿枪强奸了一个15岁的少女，还在网络上约见另一个女生来强奸，他竟然跟检察官达成认罪协商，而且还没被判刑入狱。结果现在他又再次强奸了另一个女生，然后跟这个人达成认罪协商的检察官长这个样子，而且他还声称根本就没有什么索马利帮派，他甚至还骂美国政府，说政府想透过散布仇恨跟恐惧来分化大家，这真的太符合我对白左的印象了。这群白左根本就是祸害国家最大的元凶，他们先用进步司法这一套，把一些小罪都当成没罪，对于他们觉得是弱势的人，像是非法移民，他们就特别宽容，对自己国家的人反而很严苛，他们还会同情罪犯，却对受害者很凶，结果搞得西方国家的大街上到处都是罪犯在乱跑，根本不是被关在监狱里。这些问题全部都是这些进步司法人员搞出来的。面对这些骗话，西方各国的政策在人道主义和身份焦虑之间摆荡得非常厉害。现在呢，欧美国家因为保守主义兴起，大家都在收紧移民政策。在华盛顿有个阿富汗移民叫高汉，他喊着真主至大，枪击国民警卫。对士兵发生了这个悲剧之后，川普政府就宣布无限期暂停接受来自阿富汗、索马利、也门、海地这些第三世界国家的移民申请，而且还发誓要执行美国历史上最大规模的驱逐计划，甚至还要取消非公民的福利。
All right, this news just breaking moments ago. Fox News has obtained photos of one of the Somali illegal immigrants wrapped up in the Minnesota fraud scandal, posing with several high-profile Minnesota Democrats, including Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Governor Tim Walz. The man pictured is Abdul Dahir Ibrahim. He entered the country in 2000 and has had an order for removal since 2004. He also has a prior conviction in Canada for asylum and welfare fraud. ICE tells Fox News Ibrahim was granted temporary protected status for 10 years, but should have never been eligible. We are going to have more on this in our next hour.
川普说，那些索马利美国人根本没什么贡献，伊尔汉·奥马尔就是个垃圾，他的那些朋友也都是垃圾。川普还说，叫他们滚回自己的老家去解决问题啦。
And when I see somebody like Ilhan Omar, who I don't know at all,But I always watch her for years. I've watched her complain about our Constitution, how she's being treated badly. Our Constitution, the United States of America, is a bad place. Hates everybody, hates Jewish people, hates everybody. And I think she's an incompetent person. She's a real terrible person. But when I watch what is happening in Minnesota,the land of 1,000 lakes, or however many lakes they have, they got a lot of lakes. But this beautiful place, and I see these people ripping it off. And now I'm understanding, and you're going to look at that's. I hear they ripped off Somalians, ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions. every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you, okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country's no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries, too. I can say it about other countries, too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain, and do nothing but bitch, we don't want them in our country.
Somalis are definitely being targeted, being scapegoated. I don't know when America started caring about fraud. What I know from America is if you are rich and powerful and white, yeah, your claim to fame is fraud. The fact that you guys are upset that Somalis are doing it is kind of weird. Some Somalis did it, okay? Well, if I benefited from that money, I would say, yeah, and I had a good time. Rich people are mostly white men, okay? White men and women, and we all know that they pillaged the planet, right? And that's how they got their money, but I am supposed to feel bad because my people finally decided to get themselves involved in white people business? No. Steal more and send me some, please.
在这之前，川普还宣布了一个计划，要提供政治庇护给那些反移民的欧洲人，会优先考虑那些因为在网络上和平表达反移民想法，结果被针对的欧洲人。这个制度还会优先考虑讲英文的人跟南非的白人。这些改革草案会评估申请人有没有办法好好融入美国社会。申请人还需要去上关于美国历史、价值观，还有如何尊重当地文化规范的课程。在欧洲呢，丹麦也提供了一个很有争议的做法，他们首相拉斯穆森推动了一个叫做平民区法的东西。这个法案的目的是要消灭那些非西方裔人口超过 50% 的社区，强制拆除或卖掉社会福利房，加重犯罪的惩罚，而且还要求移民的小孩必须接受丹麦价值观的教育。更直截了当的例子就是匈牙利，他们的国家旅游宣传片竟然公开说自己的国家是欧洲最安全的地方，原因就是我们拒绝非法移民。影片里甚至还有点骄傲地提到，因为这样他们每天被欧盟罚款100万欧元，但他们觉得这很值得。匈牙利总理奥尔班就说，我们很乐意付这笔钱，为了我们国家的安全着想，这总比活在恐惧里好太多了。如果把这笔罚款跟实际情况比一比，其实还不到英国每天花在移民旅馆费用的1/6。这些强硬政策的背后，其实是对社会分裂、文化冲突和安全风险有很深的担忧。当然，支持大量移民的那些老一套经济说法一直都还存在，像是高龄化社会需要移民来维持税收，填补劳动力不足，人口多了就代表经济总量会更大，还有国外的医护人员、老师这些专业人才也能够支撑公共服务，但这好像有点自相矛盾。你引进的新人口越多，对于住家、医疗、教育的需求压力就越大，结果又得引进更多移民来盖房子，填补这些职缺。虽然自己国家可能还有几百万人靠福利生活，却没有工作，政府面临的问题一大堆，从交通塞爆到房子不够住，再到水资源变得很吃紧，背后都看得到人口一直增加的影响。移民短期内确实让经济总量增加了，但也一直压低了薪水，影响到当地低技术劳工的就业机会，还挑战了社会的凝聚力。当当地的小朋友在学校变成少数，当社区的语言习惯和样貌快速改变的时候，大家就会开始担心这里到底谁才是主人啊？这种焦虑感就出来了。那些搞政治的人通常都不太敢公开讨论这种感觉，直到冲突用更激烈的方式爆发出来。数字是不会骗人的，整个西方世界的本地人生育率都已经普遍跌破了世代更替水平，就是维持人口不变的生育率。意大利只有 1.24， 西班牙 1.23， 德国 1.36， 最高的美国白人也才 1.64。 相较之下，埃及有 2.9， 奈及利亚有 5.2， 巴基斯坦 3.4， 奈及利亚新生儿的总数量甚至已经比整个欧洲加上俄罗斯的总和还要多了。联合国预测说，从2000年到2050年 会有好几亿人从非洲、中东、东南亚这些地方搬到欧洲和美国，这可能是人类历史上规模最大、持续最久的人口大迁徙了。结果其实已经很明显了，大概到了2040年，所有西方国家30岁以下的年轻人里面，本地出生的人都会变成少数，全部都会是这样。这一代刚刚进学校的小朋友，将会是有史以来第一个在本地人口比例一直减少的星球上长大的世代。这一场大改变是有计划的吗？比较可能的是，它是无数个人的选择、经济的力量、政策上的漏洞，还有历史的潮流，这些东西一起作用，形成了一股巨大的合力。虽然没有一个统一的蓝图，但却往一个很清楚的方向前进。
So, what are your thoughts on the immigration in London? Like, people call it mass immigration.
Well, we don't.
You don't? Okay.
We
So
don't.
please, correct that, please.
I don't know if I can. It's always happened.
Yeah.
You know, we are a nation of immigrants,
Yeah.
right from the Angles and Saxons.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, I would welcome it.
Yeah.
I would welcome it.
I mean, we're not surprised that it becomes ghettoised because when people come, they need to feel secure.
Yeah.
So they go where they know they're going to be people like them.
Yes.
So that's why it becomes ghettoised, and the powers that be need to recognise that's what happens when there's immigration.
Yeah.
And people have got to realise that the reason we've got immigration is because we've colonised the world,
Yeah.
and we've got responsibility to the people whose countries we colonised. And if that responsibility means they've now got the right to come here, that's what
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
There's a lot of like people saying like Islam is not compatible with the West.
Too bad.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
You just have to live together.
Yeah.
Suck it up.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you rub shoulders
Yeah.
together. You get along.
Yeah.
Why should
I
it?
mean, it's basically the right that are building up
Yeah.
that hatred between people. It's happened in waves throughout all our lives.
Yeah.
And we've seen it happen before, and it's happening again, and it's just horrible.
Yeah.
And we had a brief time when it was illegal for anybody to express a hate crime, and then and Britain was such a much better place for it. And now it's all coming back that since Brexit,
Yeah.
people are feeling they've got the right to, freedom of speech.
People saying it's getting more dangerous. Is that true or no?
What, in this
People say that in the States. They are saying.
Oh no, that's complete propaganda. Trumpian
They're saying that-
propaganda.
Yeah.
It was all rubbish. We knew it was Trumpian propaganda.
Yeah.
Because Sadiq Khan is the mayor of London,
Yeah.
and he's a lefty,
Yeah.
and Trump hates him
Yeah.
because he's a Muslim and he's lefty, and he gave us all this rubbish.
历史上也不是没有这种先例。当一个社会里原本的族群人口优势不在的时候，结果常常就是文化语言和权力结构会发生很深的，而且大多数时候都是很暴力的转变。从罗马以前随便发公民权，到拜占庭的小亚细亚地区被凶星化、只突厥化，再到1492年后的西班牙，差不多都是这样，从来都没有过温和的演变。西方世界现在正以惊人的速度进行一场以前从来没有过的社会实验。很有趣的是，那些这么多年来一直把讨论人口结构片化说成是种族主义的某些西方白左精英，自己却常常悄悄地把小孩送去白人占 90% 的私立学校，他们教大家要为多元化欢呼，自己却避开了多元化最难预料的那些后果。我觉得那些活在自己世界里却不承认老百姓真实生活状况的人，既不值得我们肯定，也不值得我们尊重。点出移民问题，并不是要否定移民带来的活力、文化跟经济贡献，也绝对不是排斥外来者。很多移民都很努力工作，也很守法，他们也很努力融入社会，变成了社会新的栋梁。问题是移民的数量、速度，还有他们融入社会的程度。当这些变化太快，超过了社会整体能接受和适应的程度时，混乱、冲突和那种失去的感觉就一定会发生。一个能提供繁荣机会和公平感的社会，比较能消化人口结构的巨大变化。相反的，如果国家本身就已经面临经济停滞，工作机会很少，社会认同感也消失了，还有各种各样的问题，那么谁才真正属于这里？这个老问题就会用最尖锐的方式再次被提出来。现在其实才刚开始而已。我是利恩，请继续锁定超级神队友，为你揭开穆斯林翻转全世界的惊人进行式。
Yes, we know the cornerstone is Christ alone, our hope now forever.